Yeah, it's all good. I really just appreciate you being on here and, being able to take the time while you're driving. And sometimes that's the best phone calls is when you're driving.
Honestly, I love talking on the phone while I'm driving.
Me too. I do, especially for the long drives. It's like I finally have time where like I'm not distracted and I like think, after hanging up, the music just hits a little harder.
Exactly. I feel like, I don't know, I get all my best thoughts while I'm driving. I like to be busy in the car. I'm stuck. I can't do anything else. I can't be
Mhm.
distracted.
I get that. I totally get that. I can't even like I had to drive down to Houston to go down to the Ocean Corporation, where I met you, and I was nervous. I was like, I've flown on planes my whole life, and every road trip I've always fallen asleep, like literally forced sleep. I don't eat, like I don't pee, like I don't drink water, like I forced sleep that whole time in hybrid until I get there. And then it's going to be easier for me to drive this trip. So 5 hours isn't that bad when you think about it. But for me, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I knocked it out with like, I was talking to my aunt for a couple hours and then I listened to music for a couple hours and the time went by really fast.
No, at this point, I hate driving and I feel like I do it all the time. Like,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, Dallas and back is just, I do that like every other weekend. It's
What?
just, it is what it is at this point.
You do it every other weekend?
Roughly. I do it, so like, I'll do it on a Friday and then I
Mhm.
come back again on Sunday.
Oh my
Like, at this
goodness.
point, it's just chopped liver. I'm just like, yeah, another long haul, give me an energy drink and call it a day.
Wow. So is it traffic a little bit hectic on a Friday on Sunday?
Well,
And
I don't come from Houston. I live outside. So I'm an hour and a half from the ocean court.
oh, okay.
Yo, it's
I'll
brutal.
have to hit you up when I go out there now.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't have a ton of friends. I'm always looking for friends.
Yeah, you know what? It's really nice to have females in the trade. And that's exactly why I started this podcast. So, yeah, I'm really glad that I got to meet you. It was so exciting.
I don't know how you did it. Like, you just showed up, you put on this hat, and you're like, yeah, I can breathe and weld underwater. Let's do it. Every time y'all got in the water, I was like, these people are crazy. I would not do this with no prior knowledge.
That is hilarious. I know some people were talking about how crazy the mind game gets when you're breathing underwater or like how cold it was. I don't know if you heard up top when I was like, is there a time limit? And they were like, whenever you get cold. I was like, I'm already like what 20 minutes in. I'm numb at this point. I don't even feel.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you have that initial, oh my goodness, I'm cold moment, and then after that, all of a sudden, it's, oh, okay, whatever, we're just doing it.
Yeah, you really forget about it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, until someone points it out. Well, until you're cold, and then you're like, yeah, maybe I am already a little cold.
But yeah, how did you get into the trades first of all? Because I don't even know if this was like your first time or like, I want to know everything from the very, very beginning to like baby Hayley.
So it's been kind of a whirlwind. I always wanted to be a doctor, and
Hmm.
I was in a really bad car accident, and it didn't play out. I never finished like school for that. I got my master's degree, and then I moved to Houston with the guy I was dating at the time, and the Ocean Corps
Hmm.
just so happened to be up the road. And
Hmm.
it's really funny because they were up the road, and I never actually attended school there, but I went there all the time and checked it out, and I met the people, and I
Hmm.
got into the diving community that way. And
Hmm.
then it was 3 or 4 years later, because I'm currently a student there. And
Right.
it was 3 or 4 years later, and I was like, well, why haven't I just gone to school here at this point?
Right.
So then I started attending, and because I already had such a good rapport built up with the diving community,
Uh-huh.
I flew through it. I got a job really quick. We're graduating in 2 weeks, and everything's really just falling into place, and I'm really excited. I've always worked on ranches and been around horses, so I always had that nittier, grittier side of things down.
Hmm.
So it just kind of all fell into place, and it just happened. I can't really sit there and say a time when I said, oh yeah, I want to be a commercial diver. But
Mhm.
I always liked water and scuba diving and boats in the ocean, and it just it really just made sense at a certain point for me.
Mhm. That's so exciting. I know you had so much wisdom when I was about to go down underwater. And I was like, I know this girl knows what she's talking about. Like, you were sitting back, but I was like, I know this girl's got a bunch of knowledge. Um, and I had to go talk to you. And yeah, you gave me a bunch of helpful tips. Like, is that so? Are you like a supervisor now, since you're almost finished with the program? Because are those was that your class that's all about to graduate soon as well, or how does that?
No, so those other guys are actually 4 or 5 classes behind me,
Mhm.
and they haven't they've I think that class is diving, but they're not doing the underwater welding portion. So
Mhm.
Richard kind of came in and he was like, "Hey, if you guys want to get a jump on the underwater welding, because that's really what brings people into the program. It's the underwater welding that draws people to the program."
Mhm.
So he kind of said, "Hey, if you guys want to get in and start welding a little sooner, I need some help. If you guys help me out, then I'll make sure that you guys get time in the water to weld."
Mhm.
And when you do that, you need someone who is going to come in and they already know how to weld. They know how things work. They're going to know how to keep things in order and functioning on top of that. And
Mhm.
so he was like, "Hey, you want to come in and just oversee these guys, make sure that they're keeping everything on top. And then you need someone who's going to sit and, like, y'all have never been in the water before. You do not know what you're looking for in terms of your hat and functionality on things like that. And they don't necessarily know 100% either. So I was
Mhm.
kind of there just to make sure everything was going well, give y'all tips and tricks, oversee, and just see if there were any issues that like stuck out to me as someone who has dove, as, hey, we need to remedy this so it's not a problem later.
Okay. So is dive time something that, like, somebody who's getting their underwater welding cert, do they have to calculate all those times that they do spend underwater?
So so divers, the amount of time you spend underwater greatly correlates to your skill and your potential pay and your potential how they'll classify you as a diver. So you do want to like record that. But also it comes down to in an 8 feet of water, it really doesn't make a difference. But the deeper you go, so if you guys were going to be at 50 feet for whatever reason, you would need to calculate that because it takes a toll on your body. That's a lot of water, and water weighs a lot, and that's a lot of pressure on your
Pressure.
body. So you really have to, that's when it starts to come into play and calculate, and watching the time that you're underwater really does start to play a role the deeper you go. 8 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet. It matters after a while, but it's not nearly as big of a deal as when you start getting to 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet.
Wait, so that makes me curious. What about the people who are free diving with just a mask and they hold their breath?
You're only going to hold your breath for so long. At that point, the pressure is not going to be a big deal. And
Oh,
another
so
big
it's the
concern
time
when
under pressure.
Yeah, and another big concern when you're diving is the air expanding in your lungs. So when
Mhm.
you're at the surface, you take a deep breath, your lungs fill with air. The deeper you go, the more pressure is put on your lungs, and it's going to so think of it like a bubble. You put a bubble of air in your lungs. The deeper you go, the smaller that bubble gets. It gets smaller under pressure. All the weight of the water and everything else is going to make that bubble smaller. When you come
Mhm.
back up to the surface, that bubble gets bigger.
Mhm.
So when you're free diving, you go down and you come back up and you're constantly exhaling. There is no chance
Mhm.
that you're going to acquire extra gas while you're free diving.
Mhm.
When you're diving with that hat, you're constantly breathing all the time. So in the off chance that you go down underwater and you're breathing and you're 40 feet underwater, you go down and you're breathing. Your body's not having a problem with the gas. You're breathing in and out. Like you're expelling it. There's no chance the gas is going to expand while you're constantly breathing. However, if
Mhm.
you inhale and then you hold your breath on the way up, that gas is going to expand. And if you
Mhm.
have too much gas in your system when you're ascending, that's what gives you the bends. And bends are not likely at 40 feet of water. However, it's the same principle. The gas is going to expand, and that's what causes joint problems, breathing problems, lungs to have issues. And that's what you're trying to
Oh,
avoid with the deep dives. And that's why
oh,
you
I
need to be
see.
aware of how long you're down there, because your body also isn't going to expel gas the way it does here on the surface.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. And now I feel silly for asking a question like that, but it really put a good picture of my in my head when you were explaining that. So, how long have you been diving for?
In terms of commercial diving, I started that in July. I've been scuba diving and around the water and water sports and different types of diving and snorkeling and free diving for pretty much my whole life. I was a kid, we did trips and everything. And then once I turned 18, I was left to my own devices, and the water always called me. So
Mhm.
I went there as many times as I could. I've always loved like diving with the sharks, exploring the reefs and different things like that.
Mhm. When you were underwater welding, was it something that was like natural to you when you were going down and like setting up and everything? Like, how was that experience?
So I'm not a welder. Prior to this program, I had never welded. It's always funny coming in this program. I did not know welding involved electricity. Everybody gives me a hard time for that. I accept it at this point. I've learned my lesson, but I didn't know any different. So I went down there. I did what they told me to do, and I just went with it at that point. They said, "Hey, this is what you're trying to achieve, and this is the gist of how you're going to get there." And from there, I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And it eventually all came together and fell into place with different techniques and how you have to align things. And you can't really see. So you have to feel and you have to figure it out. And I think me not having prior welding experience helped me to excel in underwater
Mhm.
welding simply because they are such different techniques.
Mhm. Yeah, you're not applying what you already know and then trying to like copy it. You're learning it as a new trade and you're just doing as you're told to make the best successes of your weld come out. Have you done any testing on any of your welds?
Um, I actually have my final certifying test on Tuesday, and
Mhm.
so far they say all my welds passed. They're all really good, but Tuesday is going to be my ultimate deciding factor on if I get those two underwater welding certificates.
Okay. And so what happens if you don't pass the test? Will you be able to get an opportunity to retake your test?
So that's one of like underwater welding is super cool. It is super important. However, it's not nearly as important as it used to be. It is not nearly as big of a deal as it used to be. So if somebody goes through this commercial diving program and for whatever reason they don't get their underwater welding certificates, you are still going to get a job. You're still going to get a great job. And honestly, even if I do get my underwater welding certificates, the chances of me ever actually underwater welding are so slim. It's a
Really?
cool task. It is. It's not, there are very few companies that genuinely can say, we do underwater welding.
Right. Okay. Why do you think that is?
So, underwater, you can't make those critical welds. Your welds are never going to be 100% free of impurities. And at a certain point, you have to weigh your options. Would you rather have a weld underwater or bring up that pipe, weld it on the surface, and then just toss it back down? So it's really hard for people to grasp, but out in the ocean, everything is so large that they can genuinely take a pipeline that's on the ground and pick it up to the surface, weld it, and then send it back underwater, and it's not going to damage the pipeline at all.
You mean by
So
bending it?
So think of a giant piece of PVC pipe. If you
Right.
place a giant piece, like a 20-foot piece of PVC pipe on the ground, you can pick it up in the middle and it just bends. It just bends. You just pick it up.
Right.
And you're not breaking it
To
by
a
any
certain
means.
point, yeah. Right.
And so that's basically the same thing that they're doing, but on a much larger scale.
I see. Okay.
So they pick it up, they get
Wow.
their solid weld, and then you just put it back. Or if it's too deep to do that, or the pipeline doesn't have that kind of flexibility, hyperbaric welding is becoming the big thing that you're wanting to do. So you want your topside welders to be certified welders in every way, shape, and form, and then also be commercial divers. And then at that point, they go down and you wear your dive gear down, you go up into your hyperbaric chamber, you take off all your dive gear, and then it's like you're welding topside. You just stand there, you do your welds, test your welds, and you move on.
And the hyperbaric chamber is kind of like the tube. So they send you down in like a tube, so to say?
No, so hyperbaric welding is what essentially they're going to build a habitat, or think of it like a giant box around whatever you're welding, and they're going to build this box around wherever. You're going to push all the water out and keep a constant flow of air in there, or whatever breathing mixture they're supposed to be on for that depth. And then you're going to, there's no more water in there.
Oh,
so you go down.
Like, will a diver dive down there still to get into that chamber?
Yeah, you dive down just like normal, like how you got in the tank. You just go down your ladder, you jump in, however, you go down to wherever that chamber is, wherever that specific spot is that needs to be welded. You go down, you get in there, whatever hatch they have, it's probably on the bottom. You're going to climb up in there. You're going to take off all your diving gear. You're going to then just be in normal street clothes, well, just whatever you would normally weld in. And you're going to, at that point, then lay your welds, do whatever, repair, replace, do whatever's required. You're going to run your NDT tests on it, make sure that the weld's 100% good, put your dive hat back on, get out of the habitat. You're going to go back up to the boat. They're going to remove the habitat, and they're going to let it go.
Oh, so the habitat isn't going to be welded on either.
No, you'll just pick that habitat up, move it to the next piece.
Wow. And have you seen that all, like, go into play in person?
I have not seen it go into play on that large oceanic pipeline scale. I honestly, I hope the company that I'm going for, they have 2 jobs like that lined up for this year. And I'm really hoping I get to see that, because that whole process, it's so hard to believe. I think that it sounds so unrealistic and crazy and just out there.
Wow. Well, when you go and you go out there and get those, do these experiences, you have to come back and share with us.
Oh, absolutely. I'm honestly so excited for everything that you can see out there and the things that you can do. And there's so many things that I think it's just hard for us to fathom. I mean, oil rigs, they're massive. These pipelines are massive. And we're just little old people going down there. And I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you're looking forward to upon graduating?
Honestly, some people disagree with this, but I'm really looking forward to the lifestyle change that it is working offshore. You go to work and you work really hard for X amount of time, and then you come home and you don't have to worry about going to work anymore. You come home and you live your life and you do your thing. So I'm really excited for the lifestyle change. And I'm also just really excited to see all these principles that you've learned in action and see how they genuinely play out in the real world. It all makes sense here and now, but to see it genuinely play out with different things in the air and the chambers and the different oxygen mixtures that you breathe, I'm really excited about the whole process.
What about the flight simulator? Are you going to be doing that, or have you done that yet?
I don't know what that is.
It's because sometimes, like, in the off rig oil, like, you know what how do you say it? Like, the rigs in the ocean, they sometimes have to fly you by helicopter, and so they'll put you in a flight simulator where you're strapped up in the helicopter, and they essentially dunk you into a pool, and you have to escape within a certain limit of time or you practically drown.
I mean, I didn't know anything about that, but that sounds kind of fun. I mean,
I know.
after, by the time you go through, it sounds like a game, honestly.
Dude,
Like, ooh, who's gonna do
honestly,
it the
so I was
fastest?
literally telling somebody about that, and I was like, "Oh my god, like I would so do that," and she was like so terrified that I even said that. But
It
yeah,
sounds like
no,
a game. Like, who's gonna do it the fastest? If you don't do it fast enough, you're out of here.
I know they do it in the military for training as well. Because they're flying over the ocean as well. But yeah, this has to do with like welders going out, and they have to also be able to be trained for certain situations that may come arise.
Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense. I mean, accidents happen all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much have to like unbuckle yourself and just stay calm enough to escape and then, reach the surface. But yeah, that's all a part of it. And yeah, I had to ask because I think that is somewhat, I feel like if you are going to be like offshore, that is the type of training you would have to receive. But yeah, that's
I I completely see where that is valuable training. And on the flip side of that, I see when you go through your commercial diver training, they prepare you pretty well for that. How are you going to handle this mental situation of you can't breathe? Humans aren't meant to be underwater. Accidents happen all the time. So I feel like it would really stem back to that. And I would be at that point grateful for everything that I learned at the Ocean Corps in terms of how to handle that mental stress and how to remain focused and stay focused despite those unfortunate circumstances.
I do have to say, never gone scuba diving before, with the tank, let alone underwater welded. But you guys made me feel really comfortable. The dive crew and everybody who was helping me put on the gear and talk me through it. I know you were there to kind of, help me understand like the process and the procedures and such, but I felt really comfortable. So are you're saying at a time during your training that you do cut air supply a little bit to help train you in those situations?
Yeah, so you have to train an instinct in different aspects. So when you're diving in commercial diving, you have your main air supply, and heaven forbid like anything happens to that. What's your next step? Okay, well, you have a bailout bottle on your back. Okay, so as soon as I feel that resistance, so you're in a bubble of air essentially, and you have a couple breaths before the water is going to start offsetting. The pressure of the water is going to start intruding on your head. So at that point, as soon as you feel that resistance, you want to be able to turn to your bailout bottle. Okay, unfortunately, your bailout bottle is not going to last forever. There's a limited supply. So you have to go, okay, what's my next option? You have your pneumo hose. Okay, you can stick that in your hat. That's free flow air. It's never going to stop theoretically. And you have to know all these different options. You have to know how deep you are and okay, can I cut jet to the surface? We do drills where they turn your air supply off and you have to go to the bell, which simulates like deep diving. So you're well over 100 feet. They cut your air. You have to feel the resistance, swim to the bell, and then connect to another emergency set of air. And that one really can be tricky because you're disconnecting yourself from your surface air to connect yourself to a different type of air. And you have time essentially because you have a couple breaths here, a couple breaths there, but you have to do it quick. You have to mentally process, hey, I need to stay calm enough not to increase my breathing, but I need to get this done. This is a life or death situation.
Wow. Yeah, I had an amazing air supply. I couldn't even imagine going through that, but that that seems like quite the training.
It's one of those things where you really have to overcome that mental thought process because
Uh-huh.
it's life or death at a certain point. If you freak out, if you lose whatever's keeping you breathing calm and steady and happy, if you lose that little happy place that you have in an emergency, there's nothing there that can save you but yourself, and you have to know what your options are and where to go.
I can only relate to like Call of Duty. I feel like The only like okay, so you're talking about a bailout bot. I have no idea what a bailout bot is. I'm thinking
It's
of
a
Call
scuba
of
tank.
Duty,
It's a
right? And
scuba
it's like
tank.
a handheld. Is it like a handheld little tank?
It's your scuba tank. So that giant harness that we put on you
Yeah.
typically has a scuba tank in the back.
Oh, okay. It's
And
not
so
a
we would attach
handheld
that then
little.
to your hat as well.
Oh, I guess if you're deep diving, it would make sense to have a full-on tank. But yeah, no, in Call of Duty, we had this little handheld tank, and between like two people, we had to hand it back and forth to get through while we were underwater. I know it's so funny, but it's like it was like such a timing thing because if you didn't get the tank in time, you like passed out and then you'd have to restart the game over and over and over. And it was just like you had to swim next to each other and like pass the tank back and forth, back and forth. It was so, but
Yeah, no, we're not passing tanks back and forth over here.
yeah, it was like swimming underground because I think somehow like what was it? It was like some underground trenches or something. But yeah. Yeah, no, I had no idea what a bailout tank was, but maybe not for like every single training scenario.
No, when you're in the 8-foot tank, if at any point you're like, oh, I can't breathe, just jump. Just jump. You'll be okay. We'll get you.
And you
Just
reach
jump.
the surface?
Yeah. So if you
But
stand at the
when
bottom
you
of that
reach
8-foot
the
tank and you,
surface, do you take off your helmet too, or how would that work?
so if hypothetically, you run out of air in your hat and
Uh-huh.
you jump and your hat gets above water, all that water is going to drain out of your hat. And then you're going to have, it might be like hard to breathe, but you'll have air.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So even in the hat, like if you're standing on the surface and we turn all the air off to the hat, it's hard to breathe, but you can suck some air in if you really wanted to. If it was life or death, you would get air through the hat.
Okay. Now I understand. So it's called a hat?
A hat, a helmet. It's a very versatile thing.
Okay. I just kept hearing you refer it to as a hat, and I am obviously have no idea. So the terminology I don't know the terminology. I'll just be honest. Yeah, I don't know the terminology. So I was like, oh, okay, is it a hat now? I didn't know.
No, yeah, I mean, it's a dive helmet if you want to Google it specifically, but most divers are just going to call it their hat.
Okay. Is there any, like, could you walk me through the curriculum of, like, what you had to go through?
So they break
Basically
it
to the
down.
point of getting your, your scuba cert? I mean, your scuba cert. Your underwater welding cert?
So the whole curriculum at the Ocean Corps for the UDT, which is the Ultimate Diver Training, you go on your Monday and they do whatever their orientation, you have your orientation week, and then you go through dive physics, which is how your body is going to react to the bubbles, the pressure, and you do some math and calculations on that. And then you're going to go into physiology, which is different things that can happen to your body with that pressure and that kind of just in general, the different things that can happen to your body when diving. And then from there, you'll do your orientation dive, which is going to basically be your first time getting your feet in the water. And then you're going to go through decompression tables and how to decompress a diver properly so they don't have excess gas in their system. And then after you go through your decompressions, when you really start diving and they start working with you on being comfortable in the water, just getting hands-on, learning how everything moves, because it's a different world down there, learning how everything moves, how your body moves. And then from there, you'll go into mixed gas, which is for deep diving, because the deeper you go, you don't always breathe air. The air just doesn't react very well under that kind of pressure. So from mixed gas, then you go into your NDT, your basic NDT things, and you'll learn your different testings and your ultrasonic testing and your magnetic particle testing. And then from there, you begin your welding portion.
Okay. And have you done any projects, or I don't know if you call them projects, have you done any simulations that you would like to share?
So one of my favorite, we do call them projects. It's school. We're all learning. One of my favorite projects that we did was a midwater project, and that's where whatever you're working on, it's not sitting on the bottom and it's not at the surface, so you're in the middle of the water. And I really liked that one because it's something that you don't really think about.
Uh-huh.
So if you're working on a pipe or a valve or something that's in the middle of the water, where are you going to put your hands? Where are you going to stand? How are you going to get leverage? Just different things like that to think about, because when you're working and you're standing on the ground, leverage isn't a big problem. Where are you going to stand is not a problem. How are you going to stay in this one spot is not a problem. So I really like that mid-water project because it did show you kind of a different viewpoint, essentially, of how things can work. And then another one I really liked was we did the bell drill, where it simulates the deep diving on the gas mixtures, and just it really kind of humbles you about how wrong something can go and how you have to react. And I think that that's really good for everybody who wants to be a diver, simply because it's a different mindset that you have to get into, and not everybody has that. And I think that drill was really good about showing us all who's really capable of doing these things mentally.
Did you have any struggles whenever you were going through the program?
I think we all kind of shared a similar struggle when we first started diving. Nobody's ever really dove in the hat before. I think I was pretty nervous. I didn't understand until we went to the physics part of it, how you actually breathe in the hat and how it all works together as a whole. And then when it came to the mixed gas turning our air off, I'm not a super duper swimmer. So I was definitely a little nervous about how that was going to come together and how long did I actually have to hold my breath. So I've definitely had my nervous points, and I think being nervous about that is definitely okay. You do need to have a healthy respect for what you're doing and how dangerous it has the potential to be. So based on that, I mean, I just gave me, after I was nervous, I dealt with that, I came through it. It genuinely then just turned into a sense of accomplishment of, hey, you can do it. You're like, you've got this. And everything after that was really just smooth sailing.
Nice. So you could say that you're pretty confident about what you do now.
Yes. I don't want to say I'm too confident. I could still be humbled. It's definitely still a world that I have barely dipped my toes into, but I'm very confident that I can go out there and I would be okay. I know how to take care of myself under the water, and I was given the tools needed to be successful. That's
awesome. I'm really glad that the Ocean Corporation has given you these opportunities.
I am too. It was one of those things where you never really know what to expect when you just start a new journey, and they gave me everything that I needed to, and I'm really grateful for that.
Like, how do you think you've grown personally from, being at the Ocean Corporation?
I would say it's definitely given me I've always been a really team-oriented person, but this has definitely given me a new perspective on a team and what it takes to trust other people. Because when you're under the water, somebody else is in control of your air. Somebody else has to monitor and make sure that everything's going according to plan. So the trust that you have to have in the people around you, I think it's astronomical, and it's a very vital part. And I've never been really good about just saying, yeah, I trust you with this. And so it helped me grow as a person and kind of just,
which totally is what we all did when we went there that weekend.
Yeah, and that's why I said, I don't know why any of y'all did that. I think that's absolutely crazy. Like, y'all.
My eyes are literally opening as you're talking, because you literally just said somebody else is in control of your air supply. I had no idea, like, what. So I saw some pressure gauges right up top. Is that
it is a valve. One 90-degree turn and you have no air. One 90-degree turn is all it takes. One person's elbow bumping something, that's all it takes. It does not hard.
Hayley, you're talking about air. You're talking about one 90-degree turn of a bolt that literally helped set the lead.
Exactly.
That literally would not connect the lead while the welder was welding down there. That 90-degree turn, is that what you were talking about?
No, so the 90-degree turn on the welder, okay, this is a great example. So a 90-degree turn on the welding machine for the lead was not enough of a turn to get the welder's connection properly, but a 90-degree turn was all it takes to suffocate you, essentially. And I think that's crazy.
I am just, oh my God, that is hilarious. Yeah, we full on had full faith and trust. And honestly, I think coming from like the welding point of view, I think we were just thinking about like how we're gonna weld, like once we get down there.
Exactly.
At least that's all I was thinking about. I had not even thought anything about air or.
But no, like of every question you guys were asking, nobody was asking about air and breathing and surviving. You guys were just like, yeah, how do I make a weld look good?
Yeah, I think when I was down there, I did get a couple tips from you, and I just wanted to get better because I first ran stick like I was welding for the first time all over again.
Yeah, they're not the same. Everyone who's like, they're like, oh, I'm a hot shot welder, and they go down there and they look horrible. It's just not the same.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm not a great welder to begin with. I could run a bead.
I mean, but I know just enough to know that I'm good at one, but I'm not good at the other.
Right. Oh my goodness. Have you tried welding like outside of the water?
Yeah, I have. I got my F1 and my F2 the other day with stick. But otherwise, I was trying to do my overhead and the slag got on my shirt and I caught on fire and I was like, yeah, nope, I'm going to water. No more for me.
That's congrats on getting your F1 and your F2.
Thank you.
So is that stick? Have you tried TIG or MIG at all?
Oh, I have not. Like I said, I'm not a welder. So unless someone's like, here, let's try this, I'm probably not going to seek it out.
So that was fun. I was just trying to improve them. And then at some point I was like, you know what? I'm going to weld a heart. And I was going to weld B&B because on one of my plates that I have at home that I've made for my daughter, I put a heart with B&B for Brooke and Blair. But I was going to put Wylana Welds, my WW. So I did that. And yeah, I have the plate from my underwater weld. So I thought that was really cool. You know what I realized was really hard to do when I was down there actually was a tack weld.
Yeah, so I think tacks underwater, they're horrible. Once you get the arc going, you have to keep it going and keep it moving. And tacks are absolutely awful because you want it to neutralize in that one spot. I always get shocked when I do tacks, honestly. I am not efficient at tacks at all.
I did get shocked a couple times when I was down there, and I know you did mention that, but yeah, it does feel like just a little tingle.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not enough to make you go, oh, I never want to do this again. It's just enough to remind you that you're in a pool with electricity.
Yeah, so was there any advice you would give somebody that's interested in underwater welding?
The best advice I can give you is just do it. Don't sit here and ask yourself too many questions. Don't get caught up in the money you think you're going to make. Don't get caught up in, oh my gosh, it's underwater. Don't get caught up in all the things that everyone says that's so bad or all the things that everyone says that are so great. Just go do it and see for yourself and make it your own. We all, at this point, everybody in my class, we've all come to different conclusions with it. We all have different relationships with underwater welding, and just do it. If you are interested in it, or if you watch the videos and you say, oh my gosh, this is so cool, I want to participate in this, I highly encourage you to do it. The community that is the commercial diving and underwater welding community in general, that's a great community to be in. And I encourage everyone who really can, essentially, to get into that.
Okay. So Is it a community? Are you a part of like an association or like a dive? Is it something like a
No, it's not like an official community. It's more that it's uh, everyone who's in the military, they already have that bond. As soon as you're like, oh, I was in this branch, you have that bond with people already. You're like, oh, okay, look, I have a little family somewhere. And it's the same
Mhm.
thing with diving. You say, hey, this is what I do, this is what I'm into, and you immediately form those connections, and people understand what you're going through and where you've been. And I think that it's a very close community of people that share very similar values and appreciations for the environment that they're in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is really nice to have people that you could talk to and relate to. But not only that, like even when you're in the field, it's nice to have people you could call back on and kind of like, hey, have you been through this situation? Do you have any tips for this? Because I found myself as a welder doing that quite a bit, asking, for some help once in a while. And it's nice to have that community, where people give you their feedback and their experiences.
Yes, absolutely.
But that being said, like, have you had any mentors that have helped you along this journey?
So of course you met Richard. Richard's a really great resource, and he's very easy to talk to and get information out of, and he knows a lot of people. So he's always a great resource to kind of bounce things off of and see where things can go from there. Um, Otherwise, I mean, my hiring manager at the company that I'll be working at, he was a great resource. There's some project managers there also that, thanks to Richard, I was able to get in touch with, and they really helped guide me and kind of point me in a direction for this career that would be best suited for me and my goals and what I was looking to accomplish.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to think. I haven't been out in the field enough to build those types of strong connections with fellow divers at this point. I have met quite a few, so I'm curious to see if I can develop those relationships into more mentorship type relationships.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're going to see what happens.
What kind of goals do you have?
So I came into this program and I really wanted to be a sat diver, which is the deepest of the deep diving. And I still am really interested in doing that, and I want to do that. So far, I've taken all the steps to get there, and now it's just a matter of getting out in the field and just putting in the work.
Okay, and how is this company gonna help you reach the goals that you want to achieve?
So they're going to help me achieve these goals because, one, they are a sat diving company. They have sat boats, which is something that's hard to find. And then in addition to that, they're busy enough that I can work year round and get the skills that I need and the dive time that I need essentially in order to get there as well.
Wow. So do you know what you're gonna start doing when you start at this company?
So everyone who graduates their dive program, they're tenders. So you basically start off as the bottom of the barrel. So what we did for you when you guys came out is essentially what a tender does, and you're going to do that for about a year, and then from there they're going to assign you a boat, and it's just going to kind of progress from there. But for the first year, we're all going to be tenders. We're all just going to be taking care of divers, taking care of gear, and just essentially making sure everything keeps flowing, and if somebody asks us to do something, we're going to do it.
Okay. Well, that's awesome because I think being at the bottom will help you realize what you need, you know, to run smoothly when you're diving down there.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean, I'm a big believer, and you can't be at the top if you've never sat at the bottom.
right,
So you got to do your time. You have to work your way through.
right. Yeah, I completely agree. And repetition, and it just really plays a part into like second nature. If you start doing something so repetitious, it's gonna come naturally, and you gain more confidence the more and more you do it.
Absolutely.
Well, this was honestly amazing. And there's my daughter.
I had a blast with your daughter. Okay.
That was great because I actually heard I was like, "Oh, what was she doing while I was down there, and I heard some people saying like, oh, she was sword fighting and, playing, I guess she was, playing around with you guys. So I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we were having a blast. So funny. She was pulling out her magic wand and like turning them into animals, and then she was like, "Well, why didn't you roar?" And then all of a sudden, you hear all the guys go roar.
She did not.
She did, and I might have encouraged it a little bit. I might have only encouraged it a little bit.
Oh my gosh, she made them roar.
Oh, they were roaring. They were robots. They were rabbits. If we could think of the animal, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
No way. Oh my God, I would have loved to see that. Yep, there she's roaring now.
But no, it was a blast. And then I'm honestly really glad I got to meet you. I have like finding women that are in the trades that aren't like crazy is hard.
Is that so?
Yes.
You're in the trades. I think it's really cool. You're going to be doing some underwater SAT stuff. Sorry, do you say SAT or SAT?
SAT. So SAT stands for saturation.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does the AT stand for?
So it's not an act. So saturation is the word, and then they just abbreviated it.
I was like, SAT. Okay. Well, yeah, I think it's really cool that you have this opportunity. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited starting out this journey. And I hope to see you there at the Iron Woman.
I was gonna say, I don't know when the next one is, honestly.
It's supposed to be April or May. Are you still going to be there?
I might try. I think I remember Richard talking about that. I think I'm going to try to come back, but it's really going to just depend on the boat schedule, honestly.
Well, if you do find out the date, can you let me know ASAP? Because I think he was talking about a date, but it's not set yet. But I know you're closer to the school. So if you ever hear any overhead talk about it, I would love to know as much ahead of time so I could be there. And I was like, hey, can I bring Blair? And he was like, yeah, you could bring her and stuff. And as long as somebody's there to watch her. And I asked them and they were like, I love talking to people.
Yeah, I like meeting new people and I like forming those new relationships, and just, you never know. I mean, there's no telling where life's going to take you. And I don't know. I think knowing people and just having a place somewhere is important.
It's really nice to find where your passion is and your calling and your purpose. And once you find that, it feels good. And I'm so happy you found that.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, I think that's all you really have to do is just like, that's all life is just trying to find where you fit. And once you find where you fit, you just don't leave.
If anybody is interested in, the Ocean Corporation or underwater welding or reaching out to you, would they be able to find you on social media or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
I didn't know if you want to put yourself out there or not.
No, yeah, go for it. It's not, I don't post very often, but yeah, no, you can get me and you can get a hold of me that way. Hey guys, my name is Hayley Garner and I'm a recent graduate of the Ocean Corporation. I'm about to begin my job at an offshore dive company in Louisiana, and you can find me on Instagram at hjmeek_17.
Woohoo! All right. That was awesome. Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I'll edit it and I'll let you know how it goes, and send me the pictures.
Awesome. It'll probably be a little bit later. I got to work on my tractor before, the daylight's done.
Yep. All right, you go, girl. Send me a picture of you on the tractor.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Mahalo for tuning in. This is our 8th episode with Hayley as she goes on her journey to become a SAT diver. I'm so excited for you, Hayley. Today's your graduation day. The world is waiting for you to go out there and kick ass. I had such a great time talking with you, and I look forward to hearing about all your adventures. I'd love to have you back on. This was a great episode. For anybody that's interested in commercial diving and underwater welding, you could reach out to her, me, the Ocean Corporation, all very friendly people. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.